New videos every day.
It is Sunday, January 29th in Austin, Texas. It's another Indian summer kind of day. I'm John Breeding, and this is Amy Philo from Unite for Life. We're going to do a video on a profoundly important topic related to breastfeeding and psychiatric drugs. Amy's devoted a large part of her life to challenging the psychiatric drugging of mothers and babies, and we're going to talk about that. So, Amy, logic says don't do it, right? It's just common sense that you wouldn't want psychiatric drugs to pass through breast milk into a newborn baby or into a pregnant woman's baby. So, yet it's happening. Why? Talk about that.
I think as a mother, anyone who gets pregnant, and they immediately probably want to stop everything they're doing that could be harmful, and that instinct continues after the baby's born. So when a mother's just having her baby and the question comes up of, should I take this medication, usually they're going to not say yes, they're going to say, no, I'm breastfeeding, I don't want to do this. But that started to change. And even though your instinct tells you it's dangerous, like today people are starting to take drugs more and more while they're breastfeeding. And it has to do a lot with starting up way at the top, the promotion of psychiatric drugs and how it trickles down to mothers. But it really is dangerous. I mean, we've got evidence that babies who have been exposed only from breast milk are actually dying. And if they don't die, sometimes they have seizures and coma or, more minor effects, and it just goes on down from there.
So Amy has a lot of this information up on her website with Unite for Life, but it's common sense that it's dangerous. The evidence is that it's dangerous. You certainly have met people who have had tragedies in their lives because of those dangers. So why do people do it?
So like anything else in psychiatric drug marketing, it starts at the top with drug companies and psychiatrists. And in the case of breastfeeding, it's really no different. There are certain doctors who have done studies on psychiatric drugs in nursing mothers. And a lot of these doctors are not what I would consider honest or concerned at all with really the baby. They're more concerned with drug company, whether they're going to get funding for their study. So there are studies out there where people try to say it's really not that bad. It's not such a big deal. It's probably safe. We don't really know. Now that turns into headlines that say, oh, it's not bad or it's not that bad, which then like a game of telephone turns into, oh, it's safe, to, oh, it's completely harmless. And then even some people will say things like, it doesn't even get in the milk, so you're fine. But that's not true. All drugs pass into breast milk. And so we've got experts or so-called experts who are experts on breastfeeding even now saying it's safe and you should do it. So there's a psychiatrist named Zachary Stowe. He's under investigation constantly from the Senate Finance Committee for taking money from GSK and other companies and then doing studies that are funded by the government. And he's one of the main people that promotes breastfeeding on psychiatric drugs. So he's conflicted, and he's one of the main experts. And then taking down from that, we've got a guy named Thomas Hale. He's a Texas Tech pharmacologist. He wrote a book called Medications in Mother's Milk. He doesn't believe it's dangerous either. And in fact, he travels around the country talking to breastfeeding organizations, telling them how to help mothers with their depression. Message is basically antidepressants are safe. Some are safer than others, but these are the ones you should use. So that goes down to all the lactation consultants, and they quote him. And then the message also gets to doctors who read his book. So the doctors pass it on to the mothers, and for the doctors, it's an easy fix. Like, I can give this woman a pill, and she'll feel better, and it should be safe. Don't worry about it. And then the breastfeeding experts will try to convince mothers it's safe because they don't want women to stop breastfeeding. So there's all this pressure coming down from the top to keep women breastfeeding. And the only way they think they can do it is if they can convince them that they can do anything they want while they're breastfeeding, and it doesn't have to be so hard. You don't have to quit doing this. You don't have to stop doing that. Keep breastfeeding your baby. that's basically what I think the bottom line is on that.
So it's another story of marketing campaign that goes down through the key opinion leaders who then influence the other people, and then on down the line. And then that the lactation consultants and the mothering people, and of course they want people to breastfeed. So, bottom line?
The bottom line, I think about your instincts. It gets into breast milk, and drugs are not safe. If it's getting into your breast milk, it can't be safe, so just don't do it.
Breastfeeding is great. Mother's milk is perfect for babies. Adding toxic, poisonous drugs to that mix is a bad idea. So, given today's reality, it seems like mothers can get real confused and be in kind of a terrible bind. On the one hand, they want their babies to be healthy. They really want to breastfeed. A lot of them have gotten caught up, though, in this belief system somehow that depression is a chemical imbalance, which is the teaching of biological psychiatry, and the idea that these medicines, these antidepressants are so necessary for their well-being and stuff. And so they're in this horrible dilemma. Say a little bit about that dilemma.
Okay. Mothers who are intent on breastfeeding are really doing a great thing. I mean, they're doing what's natural, and they want to do what's best for their babies. It's a beautiful thing. And you've got a lot of organizations formed that try to help them, from La Leche League to promom.org online breastfeeding forums, kellymom.com, which is a breastfeeding help website. You've got doctors like Kathleen Kendall Tackett who want to help moms breastfeed, because there's a lot of benefits. I mean, it can help you with keeping your hormones at a good level, which they say prevents postpartum depression or lessens it. But the information that these people have is not very good information. They're saying that this stuff is safe. And so at the same time, they're using that to pressure women to continue breastfeeding while taking drugs. They're like, just don't stop breastfeeding. Just take your meds. It's safe. Such and such article says so, or this doctor said so. So it's fine. So just keep breastfeeding. And there's all this pressure. And what used to be something that's really natural, and whereas La Leche League was formed in the 50s and had its heyday in the 70s of the natural mom organization, today they've turned into like pro-drug breastfeeding organization. And it's really dangerous. And I think that if you step back and think about it, it's really scary that because of psychiatrists, we've taken one of the most beautiful and sweetest parts of life, which is having a baby and breastfeeding and raising your baby and nursing, and we've turned it into something that could potentially kill babies. So I wanted to give a couple stories about that. The reason that I'm here today doing this activism is because of what happened to me when I was a first-time mom, and I actually did breastfeed on Zoloft. My son did not die. He's still here with us, but he, at the age of about 10 days, was so sedated from breastfeeding that he couldn't even stay latched on. And I wound up in the psychiatric ward, and he started using some formula, and then I breastfed while formula feeding for a while. But I really truly believe if I hadn't gone to the psych ward and he had not been on formula, he could have died from the sedation. And that's exactly what happened to my best friend's baby. Kristen Delahunty, she lives in Utah. She had a baby and she was taking Effexor, which through my research I found gets into breast milk at 5 times higher than the mother's blood. Mm-hmm. And Indiana was born with problems. Kristen was taking it while she was pregnant, and she had all kinds of problems. She was floppy, and she had a hard time breathing at birth. And then every time that she would eat, she would throw up. She couldn't keep food down, so she was losing weight, and she was heavily sedated. And because of Effexor, Indiana ended up dying. And there's all kinds of complications that can happen from it. But it's something that really isn't worth it if you look at it in the long run. Like, you're taking a chance with your child's life if this is what you're doing. And I'm not trying to make people feel bad. I mean, I feel bad that I did that. It's not something I knew was bad at the time, though. But you just have to think about this, and doctors, when they hand it out, they're not worried about what happens to your baby like you are. If you lose your child, that doctor's life is going to go on just fine. But your life will never be the same.
And for every tragedy like that, there's thousands of other mothers and children who are not dying, but who are experiencing small deaths and loss of vitality in life and well-beingness. Amy and I did an article together last year. One of the subtitles was From the Cradle to the Grave, about the movement of the marketing of psychiatric drugs to cover the whole lifespan all the way down to babyhood, which is what Amy's been talking about here. We're going to talk about that in our next video. And why don't you tell us briefly about your website, and because I believe that article is also posted on the website. So tell the audience your website,
Okay.
and then we'll say goodbye on this one.
You can go to my website or my blog. The website is uniteforlife.org. The blog is uniteforlife.wordpress.com. And then I have another website that's at momsandmeds.com, which is all about breastfeeding and pregnancy and psychiatric drugs.
All right. Thank you.